How to be the master of our own destiny. It's a big subject. I don't know if I'm qualified to talk, but I want to give it a try. And the mastery in the sense of destiny, but also mastery of any skills. Because destiny is some mission or objective, and you want to learn, and the learning process is somewhat similar, as far as I can tell, in any subject. From the way to live, from the way to master, to be a painter or investor, pilot, to be samurai, warrior, and the surfer, manager, and so on and so forth. Maybe to be the master of the family, I don't know, as parent. But I tend to think that would be also the case. So let me dive into this first from the mindset, and then get into the dynamic process of how we can navigate it, to master the skill and navigate our life. In terms of the mindset or state of mind, I like to point this calm and quiet mind to be the foundation. If the mind is turbulent, your judgment may be wrong, or your accepting of the information could be biased, So you want to have a very calm, quiet mind all the way through as much as possible to accept the information, share the information, use the right word, make the right judgment. And then with that, you can find the right job or hobby or relationship or any of those, and then to live the truthful and sincere life. So I see meditation is a way to do it. And as I mentioned elsewhere, meditation is usually in sitting position and you have an allocated time. So I call it more of a controlled setting where you do this. And it's like going to the hospital, as some people may say, so that the mind gets cured and settled and better organized so that you can respond to the stimuli better and go through the process without having a difficulty, or even when you have a bad experience before, by sitting quiet and going through the meditation. You go into from conscious to subconscious to unconscious and let the situation to settle as if from the nature's way, so that the self-organizing life force would help us to get to a more stable situation, to have a good mindset. So we want to do it, and I suggest to spend some time on this and continue doing it. But at the same time, as I mentioned elsewhere, not just control setting, but the dynamic setting of daily life. You want to continue this practice of calm and quiet mind from moment to moment. So from the beginning of the morning all the way to the sleeping part and within the night, you want to have this calm and quiet mind. Things happen, so you respond, and mind get disturbed. But the practice is to try to maintain that calm and quiet mind, and you develop a better habit, a natural way of doing it over time. It may take time, maybe years, but if you continue doing it, it's like anything. If you continue, it's like a repetition as the mother of success. Even the 1% gain every day can accumulate if you continue every single day. So that's one way to look at it. But let's move on to this topic about the mastery, master of the destiny, or the master of any practice, discipline you may choose to do. I want to use a case of Charlie Munger, who is the investor and a great person I respect. And he used the example of pilot training. And I find it very interesting and applicable. So let me just go through the 6 main points that he talked about in my way of understanding. The story is given in the Almanac of Poor Charlie. Poor Charlie's Almanac, that's the book. But if I can just capture the 6 points, first one is to study the various disciplines, field, subject related to what you want to do. In this case, pilot, becoming a pilot. And the second part is to apply those different subjects in practice so that you become very good at doing things, even when there are difficulties popping up, because of this repeated process of studying and application, like going to the PDCA, CAPD, Plan, Do, Check, Act, and reflection, that you can start to gain the knack of doing it. The third point I feel that he emphasizes what he calls the inverting. You study the material and going forward, but as you experience it, you can see how the cause and effect relationship may, prevail to get the good result. So after the fact, you can also go backward, inverting the process to see if there's something wrong, what was the cause of it. So going back and forth, you start to understand the cause and effect relationship and explain with the easy word, like a scenario that you can share or understand by yourself. So it's like a story that you can develop over time that's easier to understand, not just a conceptual understanding, but each specific cases, you understand more. You kind of nail that into your storage, brain storage. So that's the inverting back and forth, the logic, and understand the picture. And the fourth point he mentions is about to put more emphasis in the area that is important. Going through this first, second, and third steps, you start to get the hang of what's going right and wrong, and going through this PDCA, CAPD, Check, Act, Plan, Do. That's what I usually say. That's better to reflect on what happened and spend time doing so would make you more focused in certain area that seem to be important. So you are developing the skill, the competence. In this way, this one is an airplane piloting situation, but any subject, painting, surfing, writing, management, investment, and living life may follow through the similar kind of practice. If you have a discipline to follow through this over and over, that's the key point. And he mentions on the fifth point as the checklist. It's obvious for anyone who learns things. There are some key points that you need to remember. In my case, I may have a checklist for going fishing, or catching fish, or surfing, or many things in my house. There are lots of checklists. Sometimes I need a checklist for the whole checklist, but this is part of the discipline of standardizing the process. If you know what's important, you make it visible so that I can follow. You can follow this at ease. And the last point, the last step he mentions is to go through various cases as if you're living in that instance. Maybe from your own experience, or maybe from someone's experience, maybe someone's errors or mistakes that they did. But studying those and figuring out, inverting or checking what they have done and how they emphasize certain issue to be important or not, you can learn the lesson. It's like going through the case study of different people's life. By reading people's story, the success story, but also important is the failure story, so that you don't have to repeat the same kind of a failure in your own life. So that's Charlie Munger's way, and obviously he succeeded in practicing it. And he emphasized this. And he then became a well-known investor at Berkshire Hathaway with Warren Buffett. But also he's living long. You know, one of the things that he emphasized is that don't go near where you die. So his principle is applied not just the investment, but the way he lives and sort of consuming the energy, efficiently practicing it and effective in what he does because of all these principles. So it's the case of the pilot training that I see him emphasizing, but also applied in investment and how you live your life, as much as how you may want to be the master of the painting or some hobbies or the work or some of the purpose that you want to achieve, and also to find the passage well to navigate your life. So that's basically is the principle. If I can summarize, the way I see it is that we won't have a calm and quiet mind, no matter what goes into our life and whatever the situation we fall, because ultimately we can only live moment to moment, and each moment the right judgment is necessary if we want to live in a full fashion, which is not just reacting, but prepare to be ready for the important occasion. So in Charlie's case, he makes sometimes a very quick decision. Warren Buffett the same, because they have gone through lots of cases and studies and practicing those disciplines to polish the skill and some mistakes and go through the PDCA, CAPD, and they develop certain level of confidence and the area that they feel very competent. And they don't want to go outside of the competency. It's kind of like if you are the airline or airplane pilot, you don't necessarily do the same thing or just think that you can do navigating the car or boat, sailboat. Each has its own unique characteristics, but for each to be excellent, that you can to be the master, these are the disciplines that the person like Charlie Munger has emphasized and put in place. One last word related to Charlie that I want to emphasize is that in living life, if we are not careful, we just believe certain, say, logic and apply it, and that's the end of it in certain field. Learn skills or the going through school, but at the same time, you may need to synthesize various skills, especially when it comes to living life. You have to deal with your emotion, the psychological issues, and the other issue is that this principle that you can apply in area A may be applied in area B and C and D. So as you become excelled in certain things, the same idea, the training process, how you manage your mind and body, your heart, and how to process information and so forth can be applied. And if you have such a process, it's kind of connected to my concept of mini company. Each of those subject matter is like each mini company. I call it the me and the mini me. There are lots of multiple me's within myself, but they are somewhat operating in a similar principle to excel in any of those fields. And then with that principle, you can see the picture much clearer and then connect the dots and synthesize all to live your life. Because as I mentioned in the life profile, which is another video, and maybe a few videos on that, there are different things that we can emphasize to practice to be the master. In my case, I chose 6 main ones. To live truthfully and sincerely is number 1. And then the work, hobby, relationship, and the finance and health. Those are the 6 of them. There could be more, but I repeatedly review this and check and make sure the whole thing is balanced to move forward. So it's a pilot discussion that we went through, but we can apply that in different areas. And more we apply it, and more experience we have, and more efficiency and effectiveness that we can find, and the common thread that applies to all of them, also with calm and quiet mind. I think I can, and you can, and I believe I have been reinventing my life every time I face the challenge and so forth to move forward. Of course, everybody's competency and the skill set and so forth is different. But I hope this time that we spend here together is meaningful for you. And the last word for you and for myself is that this is the danger. The knowledge is different from skills in execution. It has to be the experiential wisdom and the skills that we can apply in the living life. Otherwise, it's just a talk, cheap talk on the YouTube. And we may store it, but if we don't use it, it's not so effective. The memory fades away, and we think we know it, but we don't actually practice it. So these video series that I talk may be overlapping in many places, but to me, it is one of those that I have to synthesize everything within myself. And I hope you find it meaningful to do the same, even though some may not resonate in you. But after trying and figuring out, many things can pop up as if something that was forgotten but is important. That happened in my life. Some of the words that I remember didn't exist in the sense of a lively manner, in practice. But later, you appreciate more when you understand the meaning of it. Hopefully, you, me, everyone, to go through this process of life and have fun in the process and find the meaning and be the master of your own destiny. Thank you.